I want to understand myself, know thyself, and as we talk about the compassion, I thought about interesting observation, which I hope you may find it interesting too. So let me just first read this one, if I can find it. In the response to someone's question about compassion, I said this line: I see compassion as arising from the absence of self or ego, though perhaps with a lingering shadow of self, allowing us to relate to the situation because we too may have experienced suffering that felt unjustified, wounding our self of ego. The key, I believe, is to process the ego by fully accepting everything as it is. So what I'm saying is that looking at myself about the compassion, there's the way to bring out the compassion by us being no ego. Therefore, you have this sense of equality with everything else, oneness. And therefore, because of the wound that we may have had in the past, whatever the reason is, that wound may be triggering that person or the world to feel. So without such feeling, we may not have compassion. So I think that's sort of interesting to understand that, because if we are at the state of absolute being and in nirvana, you may not think about it. And being at the eternal home, I call it, that's about the non-duality, the word I don't like to use as much. It's just a state of absolute being. No judgment, which I talked about over and over. Also about Shinjinmei, faith mind with Sosan. This is a Zen angle to it. But whatever the case is, the compassion may have such elements down deep in our unconscious part. Perhaps they call it the Araya consciousness, deeper part of our structure, down below, that we may not realize as easily. But that's what triggers us to feel this compassion. Then you can say the same thing about the wisdom. And the logic there, as I was thinking about, is something like when we see someone unjustified, that I have one experience going on right now. There's a sense of the compassion, like this Jesus saying, forgive them for they do not know what they are doing. But they are in a position to know what they should be doing. So from that point of view, just like in the case of what's going on in the US, Elon Musk and Trump going over the legal boundary in possibility. I'm not sure if I can be qualified to say that, but there's lots of discussion going on. So if that is impacting so many people, how can you feel indifferent or just be compassionate about it? So I go through that. So I'm fairly sure everybody go through that. To what level, the depth, and what sense of feeling originated from what background, what basis that we may have had that unjustified feeling in my life or your life. And come to think about it, when I was in kindergarten, I bit a teacher's finger. That's what I understood. Someone told me. And there was a case of me being punished by my parents, which I thought was unjustifiable. So those can be retained in us. So if people, not just me and you, but also those famous people, may have had a very rough life. Mary Trump said something about Trump, and what's his name? I forgot his name. Isaac. Anyway, he wrote the book about Elon Musk and saying that Elon's early age he had such a bully situation, being hit so many times and all that. That must have impacted a huge amount. So, on one hand, is the legal issue. On the other hand, is a deep sense of some happening. And on our side, in each of us, have the wound and the things that happen, that influence. So that's the fairly convoluted process of how we try to communicate and make the most of what we can as a humanity. But each has its own reasoning and background. Some are more obvious, some are hidden behind. And the one that isn't behind cannot be easily accepted, but it just shows up in the behavior. That's the karma. So that's the breakthrough that we want for each of us. And that with that breakthrough of being at the absolute state of being, or no mind, no self state, deep samadhi, we bring out compassion, and which I explained, but also about wisdom, especially relating to the legal issues and the impact to the society. There are those issues. So this discussion of compassion and wisdom and the origin of it and how they come about, each with each one's own experience, which may be biased in this way and that way, because that's the human nature, that depending upon what kind of experience you have a biased or some programmed response, and the habitual pattern and karma develop. So that's the nature of the world, and that's the nature of the world we live in, and the way we may respond, and everyone may. And therefore, what does that mean? Number one, understanding the background and have a calm and quiet mind to resolve it if it's important. And the resolution can be indifference or ignore, as Einstein put it. Weak people are so, strong people are so, intelligent people are ignoring. But the word ignoring I mentioned this is in the other video, totally obliviate. I don't know what's the word. It's not to ignore it. Acknowledge, but take action. Understanding of the background so that you can retain equanimity. And with the joriki, the steady power of that we can cultivate, we can go through these waves and the storms of the world again with calm and quiet mind to make the right judgment. So it is a continuous process. And for me to post many videos is to keep continuing and reaffirming, and I use the word reinforcing. You call it the right value or the right process, whatever the term is, to make the most of what we've got individually and collectively, and find a way to work together. And there are various approaches to help accomplish that with those we call awakening or transformation. And that's what I think we all need, the world need. And to aim for, may all beings be happy to live positively and with aliveness and confidence, never-ending process probably, and most likely. And just the last word is, we need to use AI, therefore, because I doubt AI may get to such a level to give us a good suggestion. We are the one to use the AI, not to be used by the AI. That's what I think. Thank you.